So what we're going to be looking at today, we're going to kind of be bringing everything together and see why we even do all the different things we've been doing in this unit. We're going to, like I said, kind of see it all come together here. And we're going to be covering some things that you've covered in the past, but maybe you've forgotten, so we're going to review them. This section is called the Factor Theorem. And what this section is really all about is what is the relationship between zeros and factors. That's really what today is about. What I'm hoping that you're going to see is if you know the zeros, you know the factors. And if you know the factors, you know the zeros. So that's really what we're going to be looking at. So we're going to see what is that relationship, because if you know one, you automatically know the other. We're going to kind of look at that right now. All right, so when we're given an equation and we're asked for the zeros, one of the methods is graphing. Okay, so we're going to kind of review that because there'll be some equations where there'll be nothing you can do other than to put it into a graph. So I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type in my equation, x squared minus 3x minus 10. I'm going to go to the window on my calculator and make sure it's a standard window. Then I'm going to hit graph. And there's my graph. Looks just like that one, right? And I want to find the zeros. So when I go to find the zeros, I go to second trace, 0. And I've got to scroll. Oh, there it is. There's that little spider. Okay, I need to be to the left of this 0. So I'm going to be left and below, right and above. And I get 5. Remember, you always go past the guess. So one of my zeros is 5, which I can kind of see here on this graph. So one of my zeros is 5. One of my, let's find my other zero. Second trace, go to 0. Okay, left, and it is above on this one, right and below, and I get -2, 0. Now, if you need to write that process down, that you can graph, first you'd put it in the y equals, you would graph, find the second trace, and you do the zeros. Those are the steps that you would do to find the zeros by graphing. Finding zeros by graphing. Okay. Y equals graph, second trace, zeros. That's how we did that, and we got 5, 0, and we got -2, 0. Well, when we know the zeros, that automatically gives us the factors. If you didn't realize that, if we were to go ahead and we were to try and factor this on our own, because I want you to see how these are related, the product is -10 and the sum is -3. I can use the diamond method because I have a leading coefficient of 1. So I'm going to list my different factors of 10. I've got 1 and 10, and I've got 2 and 5. And how can I make -3? I could have -5 and +2. That would give me -3, and it would give me a product of -10. So my factors are x minus 5 and x plus 2. And look, if you put a 5, if you put that 0 in, 5 minus 5 gives me 0. Negative 2 plus 2 gives me 0. So the factors and the zeros are related. If you look at the zeros, and I had never done this, I can say, well, since 5 is a 0, x minus 5 is a factor. Let's write that down. Since, right here, since 5 is a 0, x minus 5 is a factor. Since negative 2 is a 0, x plus 2 is a factor. That's where, if I know the zeros, I know the factors. Like I said up here, if you know the 0, you know a factor. Now what about if you know the factors? What you have to do when you know the factors is set each one equal to 0. So set factors equal to 0 to find the zeros. Set factors equal to 0 to find the zeros. X minus 5 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. Add 5. X equals 5. Subtract 2. X equals negative 2. So if I know the factors, I can find the zeros. If I know the zeros, I can find the factors. That's a big thing you need to understand, and hopefully you already do. This is something you've done before, but we're just reviewing it because it's going to come into play with what we've been doing, and you're going to see that when we get to the second page of notes. All right, let's go to this next equation here. I could go to my graph if I wanted to, and I could graph and find the zeros. And that would then give me the factors. So let's do that. So when I have the zeros, I'm going to go ahead and look. I can't tell exactly from here, so I'm going to go ahead and put this equation into y equals, and that equation is x to the third plus x squared minus 12x. Okay. So I've got the equation. I'm going to graph it. And now I'm going to find the zeros. Second trace, 0. And let's see, I'm going to just start all the way over here on the left and kind of move. Oh, there we are. Okay. I am left and below, right and above. Go past the guess. One of my zeros is negative 4, 0. Let's go now to the 0 that's right here in the middle. It looks like it's on the origin. Let's make sure that it is. There it is. It's left and above, right and below, and sure enough, it's 0, 0. And now I need to find this last one that's right there. So second trace, 0. Okay, I'm left and below, right and above, and I get 3, 0. Which means this gives me my factors. This tells me that one of my factors is x plus 4, because negative 4 plus 4 would be 0. What does this one tell me? X plus 0, which means simply x. And I usually write that one in the front. And this tells me that my factor must be x minus 3. So since I know the zeros, I automatically know the factors. So negative 4 gives me x plus 4. 0, 0 gives me x plus 0, which is just x, and 3, 0 gives me x minus 3, because 3 minus 3 would be 0. Let's go to this next one. All right. Now, I could have factored this, but since I knew the zeros, it was easy enough to write my factors. Let's go to this one here. Kind of hard to tell what all of these are, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my calculator. And let's see. I probably should change my window to look like this window, which goes, I'm still going to do negative 10 to 10, but I'm going to do negative 750, maybe the 300. I put that into the, for the window. So let's put the equation in first. Let's go to y equals. I've got 2x to the 4th minus 5x to the 3rd minus 57x squared plus 90x. And then what I want to do is I want to change my window, and that my y minimum be negative 750, and my max be, let's say, 300. And there is that curve. I'm going to go to second trace, 0. I'm going to start all the way over here on the left and then move along. I'm left and above, right and below, go past the guess, negative 5. Now, as soon as I know that 0, I know that my factor would be x plus 5. Let's go to my next 0, second trace, 0. Let's go to this next one here. I'm left and below, right and above, and I'm at 0, 0, which I know gives me a factor of just plain old x. Right? Somehow I ended up, second trace, 0. Need to go left and above, right and below, and I get 1.50. 1.5. I'll talk about that one. So 1.50, I don't usually like to write my factors as x minus 1.5. So if I was to rewrite 1.5 as a fraction, wouldn't that be 3/2? And I need to think to myself, if my factor was x minus 3/2, think about what we did in the slide and divide method. We never left it as a fraction. We would slide that 2, and that becomes 2x minus 3. So I'm going to then change that to 2x minus 3, because I'm going to have slid that 2 from the denominator up to here. And look, that's going to help me to get that 2 that's in front. So that's a good thing. I knew something like that was going to happen because I have this 2 in the front. Let's find this last factor. Second trace, 0. And I want to be left and below, right and above, and I get 6. This just means 0. It means it's not exactly 0, but it's close, so it's 6, 0 is the last factor, which gives me x minus 6. Now, if I was to multiply this out, this is what I would get. So I use my zeros to figure out my factors. And remember, when you have a fraction like that, you have to slide that denominator over with the x, and whenever you have a 0, 0, that's going to give you x as a factor.